People keep asking if AI is good or bad, but that question misses the entire point, because it depends entirely on what you're using it for. So, is AI the problem? Yeah, video over. Alright, no, but seriously, let's talk about AI. The good, the bad, and the kinda in between. I know by now you have seen countless other videos on the topic of AI already, but I wish to offer you a few unique perspectives on the uses of AI. You might have heard parts of this before, but there are a few takes in here I don't see talked about enough. Okay, let's dive into the reasons why I believe AI is a problem. The first thing that you'll usually hear is the obvious stuff, like how much energy and water it uses and the environmental impact. That's not really what I want to focus on in this video. My first problem with AI is how many people have started relying on it for everything. We should not be using AI to diagnose health issues. And yes, I understand sometimes it's hard to talk to a professional, whether that's cost, time, or access. That's a real issue. But we still shouldn't be turning to AI for medical answers. The problem is that AI often tells you what it thinks you want to hear, not necessarily what's accurate. And while people used to joke about Google immediately telling you that you have cancer for every symptom that you looked up, AI can be just as unreliable, if not worse in certain cases. The second issue I have is how AI gets used to recreate other artists' work. It's trained on existing art styles, and while that's how it functions, the problem is when people use it to replicate those styles and act like it's their own original creation. I truly believe with enough time, practice, and effort, you yourself can make a beautiful piece of art that isn't made with AI or copying other artists. Thirdly, using AI to write stories or poems. In my opinion, I'd rather read something that's a little rougher on the edges or maybe not perfectly structured than read what people call AI slop, being pushed out every single day. Like, I don't know if you've seen those AI fruit stories all over TikTok, but I feel like we've officially hit a weird point on the internet. Like, sure, there was always weird points, but I feel like this is even like a lower weird point. Like, why are we all sitting around like iPad kids watching the apple fruit lady cheat on the banana or whatever fruit she's dating at the time? It makes me wonder, what happened to actually improving your own writing instead of watching poorly put together AI TikToks? Anyone can get better at writing stories, poems, essays, it just takes time and practice. So what's the point of using AI to do that part for you? When AI starts writing our stories and poems for us, I think it risks making us less engaged in our own creativity, aka dumbing us down. We start accepting mass-produced content and moving on, even when there's so much more potential in doing it ourselves. And on top of that, a lot of real writers can struggle to get noticed because they can't compete with how fast AI can produce content. Fourthly, this one's pretty obvious, but using AI to cheat in school. At least when I was still in school, if people were gonna cheat, it was things like Quizlet or just looking up the answers in a textbook. And ironically, you usually still ended up learning something in the process. Now it's become a lot easier to just paste things into AI and instantly get an answer. Let's be honest, it's not always reliable, and a lot of time it misses context or gives oversimplified responses. Sure, if you feed it the right information, it can give you something fairly accurate, like in a poetry class. If you just say, tell me about this poem, the information might be a little shady. But if you paste in a poem, you will probably get a basic explanation of what it means. And maybe that's enough for an assignment, but it's not the same as actually learning how to understand it yourself. I feel like using AI to break down a poem kind of takes away from the emotions the author put into it in the first place. There are so many poems that until you understand them fully, you miss out on the true meaning behind them. Alright, let's talk about the category I'm calling the maybes of AI. Maybe you need a recipe for dinner one night. Why you wouldn't just go on Instagram or Pinterest for the recipe, who knows? Not my business. But if for some reason you were going to ask ChatGPT, it falls into the maybe category for me. My friend and I tested this recently, and the results are why I put it in the meh, I guess maybe category. I asked ChatGPT, hey, I have chicken, can you make me a recipe to use it up for dinner tonight? Gave me an awful recipe. And yes, for science, I did make it. It was vile. Then my friend tried something more specific. She asked for a stuffed pepper recipe, and it actually gave her something pretty solid. So it's clear that AI really depends on how much detail you give it. It needs a lot of guidance to actually be useful. Now, there's also a chance that recipes like that stuffed pepper recipe are based on existing ones from real creators, aka stolen, which raises its own questions on using AI to create recipes. So overall, I put this in the maybe category. Useful sometimes, but not something I'd rely on blindly. Another maybe of AI is peer reviewing your paper for class. When I was in college, our professor actually had us try this to see what kind of feedback we'd get. I put this in the maybe category because AI can give solid advice, but only if you're very specific with what you ask. If you just say, how is my paper? It'll give you a really generic surface level response, but if you ask things like, how's my thesis statement, or does my conclusion make sense, it gives some pretty decent suggestions. The issue is that it often tries to take it a step further and rewrite things for you, even when you ask it not to. And that can be a problem if you're actually trying to learn from the feedback instead of just getting a rewritten paper. At that point, there are honestly better options. For example, a lot of colleges, even some high schools, have writing centers where you can bring your paper and get feedback from real people. People who are often your peers or have taken the same class and can actually guide you in a more personal and accurate way than AI usually can. So, is AI useful in a I forgot to do my paper 2 hours before it's due, can you check this real quick kind of way? Yeah. Kind of, but overall, I still think humans are the better option when it comes to real feedback and learning. Okay, let's talk about the yes side of AI, because I guess there are a couple things it can actually be useful for. The first one is simple coding issues. Recently I was playing a Stardew Valley mod pack with over 500 mods, and I kept getting an error code telling me some mods were conflicting. Now, that kind of language means absolutely nothing to my tiny pea brain. And before anyone says it, yes, I did check Reddit and other forums first. I always try to find an answer there before jumping to AI. But sometimes the issue is so specific that even the Reddit gods can't save you. That's where AI actually helped. It was able to look at the code and tell me which mods were causing the conflict, and it made troubleshooting a lot faster. Now, I still prefer finding answers on Reddit or forums when I can, because usually someone has already solved the exact same problem I'm having. But in a pinch, AI can be really useful for coding-related issues. And I've even seen YouTube talk about AI to help with coding projects, which is pretty interesting. Because as much as I'd love to learn everything properly myself with the thousands of tutorials online, sometimes you just don't have the time to dig through it all yourself. There is one last yes for me, because I'm still pretty hesitant about AI. That last thing is using it to help find articles or websites for school papers. And before anyone says it, yes, I know there are better ways to find sources. But if you're anything like me and also procrastinated until the last second on that assignment, AI can be useful in a pinch. I had to write a Spanish paper about what I would do if I went on a trip to Spain, their shops, local cuisine, and activities. And no, I did not use AI to write that paper for me. What I did use it for was finding a few informational websites and sources. I checked them to make sure they were legit, and then I wrote the paper myself in my own words. In my very questionable Spanish, because, well, I am a white girl trying her hardest. If you know, you know. So yeah, I think AI can be helpful for quickly finding informational links and getting started with research. But even then, it still sits in that maybe category for me because there are honestly a lot better research tools out there. Like, for example, your school library or Google Scholar. Alright y'all, those are my thoughts on the yeses, the nos, and the maybes of AI. So, is AI the problem? For a lot of things, I honestly think yes. Because for most uses, there's usually a better or more meaningful option than relying on AI. But I'm curious, what do you think about it? Do you like it? Are you kind of in the middle like me, or do you just not like AI at all? For me, I'm an English major. I love studying English and getting my bachelor's degree in it. So seeing job listings where people are turning AI to sound more human honestly breaks my English major heart. I just think we should be a little more intentional about how we use AI. And maybe not lose sight of the fact that we are still capable of creating things ourselves. But yeah, let me know what you think. And if you enjoyed this video or it made you think a little, feel free to like and subscribe. It generally means a lot and helps out my channel. And, well, I'll see you in the next one. Bye, everybody!